Welcome to Golden Software's demonstration video for Digger 4 Part 4. In this demonstration, I'll be covering the topic of digitizing objects and modifying the project limits and scale. After the tablet or the image is calibrated, or you imported a georeferenced image, a data, or vector file into Didger, you can begin digitizing. Digitizing is the process of transferring paper document information, image information, or other data to your computer by creating points, lines, and areas that are spatially related and have real-world coordinates. In this example, I imported a georeferenced image. Points are used to represent spot locations, like a well location, a sample location, or if you just need to find out the specific coordinates for a particular point on a map or a graph. To digitize a point, go to Digitize, Point, or click on the Digitize Point icon on the toolbar. You then have the option to specify some properties in the Property Inspector. You can change this information now, or you can go straight to digitizing. In this example, I'll change the information in the Property Inspector before digitizing. In the Digitize Data Attributes section, you can enter up to 4 IDs for your point. This can be something like a well name, a field location, etc. You can also enter the ID information after you digitized a point by going to the Increment Settings section and checking the Enter Data After Creation checkbox. If you want the ID information to be automatically incremented, like if you'll create 7 objects and they'll have a primary ID of 1 through 7 respectively, you can check the Auto Increment checkbox, and then you'll need to fill in the information below. If you're going to create many points, and you're going to digitize them one right after the other, check the Create Several checkbox. In this example, I'll check Auto Increment. I'll start with a value of 1 and have an ending increment value of 7. I'll keep the increment value set to 1, but I'll change the ID prefix to MW-. I'll also clear the suffix field. If I scroll down, I can see the Symbol Properties section. The Symbol Properties section will show you the shape, color, and size of the point you're going to create. I'll choose a solid diamond shape, and I'll change the color from blue to red. I'll also change the size from 0.05 inches to 0.15 inches. The Label Properties section allows you to modify the point labels. Click where it says to click here to open the Label Position Editor dialog box. You can label the points with one of the 4 IDs. Since we created a primary ID, I'll select the Primary ID label and click Add. I'll choose to position the label to the left of the point by clicking on the little arrow to the left of center. You can see a preview of the label position to the right here. When you've set the properties you want, click OK. Move the cursor over the plot window and your cursor will turn into a bullseye shape. Click on the screen or on the tablet where you want the symbol to be located. In this case, I'm digitizing all 7 of the monitoring wells, so I'll click on each one. After the symbols are created, you can change any of the properties of that symbol by selecting it and changing the properties in the Property Inspector. For example, I'll select this symbol, and then I'll choose to change the symbol color and shape. You can see that the symbol properties have immediately updated. Polylines are used to represent lines, such as roads, contours, rivers, or political boundaries. To digitize a polyline, go to Digitize Polyline, or click on the Digitize Polyline icon on the toolbar. You have the option to specify some properties for the polylines you'll digitize in the Property Inspector. You can change its information now, or you can go straight to digitizing. In this example, I'll change the information in the Property Inspector before I start digitizing. The Digitize Data Attributes section is the same as if you're digitizing points. In the Increment Settings section, I'll check Create Several so I can digitize multiple polylines one right after the other. I'll scroll down and I have the option to set the line properties and the label properties. The line properties is where you specify the line's style, color, width, and any start or end styles such as arrowheads. Click in the Label Properties section to label the polyline with one of the 4 IDs. I didn't create any ID information, so I won't click there. When you've set the properties you want, move the cursor over to the plot window. The cursor will change into a bullseye shape. You can digitize a polyline in one of 2 ways. You can click on each point that makes up the polyline, but that does not produce a very smooth polyline. Or you can hold the mouse button down and trace the polyline with a button being held down. This is called stream mode digitizing and does produce a very smooth polyline. Double-click to end digitizing a polyline. For the sake of speed, I won't be digitizing these polylines very accurately. Once all the polylines are digitized, I'll hit the Escape key to end being in digitizing mode. If after a polyline is created you want to change any of its properties, all you have to do is select the polyline and change the properties in the Property Inspector. For example, I'll change the line color of this polyline to red, and I'll change the width to 0.05. Polygons are used to represent a closed area, like a lake or a building. A polygon is similar to a polyline in Didger, except that the first and last vertices occupy the exact same X and Y position. To digitize a polygon, go to Digitize, Polygon, or click on the Digitize Polygon icon on the toolbar. You have the option to specify some properties for the polygons you'll digitize in the Property Inspector. You can change this information now or go straight to digitizing. In this example, I'll change the information in the Property Inspector before digitizing. The Digitize Data Attributes section is the same as when you're digitizing points or polylines, and is where you can enter up to 4 IDs for your polygons. In the Increment Settings section, I'll uncheck Create Several, since I'm only going to be digitizing one polygon. I'll scroll down and you can see the Line Properties, Fill Properties, and Label Properties section. The Line Properties section is where you specify the line style, color, and width for your polygon. The Fill Properties section is where you'll specify the fill pattern for the area inside the polygon. You can choose many different types of fill patterns and foreground and background colors. I'll choose a cross-hatch fill pattern, and I'll choose a foreground color of blue. Click in the Label Properties section to label the polygon with one of the 4 IDs. I didn't enter any ID information, so I won't check there. When you've set the properties you want, move the cursor over the plot window, and it will turn into a bullseye shape. You can digitize a polygon in the same 2 ways as digitizing a polyline, either by clicking on individual points, or by holding the mouse button down and tracing the polygon boundary. Double-click to end the polygon. If after the polygon is created you want to change any of its properties, all you have to do is select it and change the properties in the Property Inspector. To customize your project, you can change the limits and scale. Go to View, Project Limits, and here you can specify the X and Y minimum and maximum values. These determine the extents of your project space. If the project has a projection assigned to it, then these values would be in units of meters. This particular project is not projected, so the units are whatever I set my calibration units to. I can also choose to set the limits automatically based on the project extents. That will get rid of any extra white space around my objects. In this dialog box, I can also set the X and Y scaling values or length values. These values will determine the physical size of the project space and will come in handy when you go to export or print the project. Choosing to set proportional XY scaling forces the X and Y dimensions to be scaled equally. Click OK and the project limits and scale are modified. This concludes my demonstration of digitizing and modifying the project limits and scale.